Forget the final score. Forget the stats sheet. What happened after the Tennessee Titans beat the Cleveland Browns wasn't just another post-game press conference, it was a detonator. And the explosion it triggered didn't just light up social media with hot takes and angry fans. It ripped open the carefully constructed facade of an entire NFL franchise and exposed a raw, festering truth hiding underneath. A truth about a rookie quarterback too talented to ignore, yet somehow too threatening to support. A truth about a head coach whose decisions have stopped making football sense and started looking like a personal crusade. A truth about an organization so tangled in its own dysfunction, it's actively wasting a potential legend before our very eyes. When Titans coach Mike McCoy leaned into the mic and started talking about rookie quarterbacks, running games, and winning, he thought he was delivering a football 101 lesson. He had no idea he was holding up a mirror to the single most damning coaching scandal of this NFL season. Because this isn't a story about two players anymore. This is a forensic case study in how to break a superstar. On one side, you have the blueprint, Cam Ward, cradled by a system designed for his success, given every tool, every rep, every bit of support imaginable. His success was manufactured, intentional. On the other side, you have the anomaly, Shedeur Sanders, performing surgical miracles in a hurricane, with his own coaching staff seemingly trying to blow the roof off the operating room. The debate raging online about shade and respect is a distraction, a shiny object. The real story is what McCoy's comments accidentally revealed: the chilling disparity between how a functional organization nurtures its future and how a broken one seemingly sabotages its own. This is about the play call that defied all logic, in the most crucial moment of the game. It's about the pattern of decisions so consistently bad, so perfectly aligned to undermine one player, that the only remaining question is a terrifying one. Is this stupidity, or is it strategy? We are witnessing a slow-motion football tragedy. A quarterback with a generational clutch gene, forced to play quarterback, running back, and escape artist simultaneously, only to have the game-winning ball snatched from his hands when it mattered most. This goes beyond bad coaching. This feels like a psychological operation. And as the tape rolls, and the evidence mounts, a verdict is forming in the court of public opinion. A verdict that points to one man on the sideline, whose very job is to put his team in a position to win, but whose actions suggest a different, darker priority altogether. Strap in. We're not just breaking down a game, we're uncovering how a dynasty could be dying in its crib. Mike McCoy stood at the podium, the image of a calm, victorious coach dispensing wisdom. His words were measured, coated in the sterile veneer of conventional football logic. He talked about the quarterback's best friend, a strong running game. He emphasized the ultimate bottom line, winning. He painted a picture of Cam Ward, his rookie, benefiting from the rhythm of a relentless ground attack, making his job easier. On the surface, it was coaching clinic 101. It was irrefutable. It was also a masterclass in using truth to build a lie. Because what McCoy did, whether he intended to or not, was weaponize basic football principles to construct a narrative that completely airbrushed reality out of the picture. By focusing solely on the pristine, textbook ideal, a good run game helps a young QB, he implicitly dismissed the chaotic, heroic struggle happening on the other sideline. It was like a chef in a fully stocked kitchen praising the importance of sharp knives to a chef who just cooked a 5-star meal with a rusty spoon and a campfire. The principle is correct, but mentioning it in that context isn't analysis. It's a subtle dismissal. This is where the real manipulation lives, not in outright falsehoods, but in selective framing. McCoy's football truth acted as a smokescreen. By repeating the mantra of winning, he shifted the entire criteria for evaluation to a metric that Shedeur Sanders was systematically prevented from influencing. It's a rigged game. You design an offense that handcuffs the quarterback. You call plays that take the ball out of his hands in critical moments. You provide him with no supporting cast, and then you point to the loss on the scoreboard as proof of his inferiority? That's not analysis. That's a setup. The genius of Sanders' performance that day was that it operated outside of McCoy's sanitized textbook. The playbook was thrown out. Sanders wasn't playing with a best friend. He was playing against 11 enemies, with 10 acquaintances. The Titans' defense, freed from any fear of the run, could unleash hell. Every down was a passing down. Every look was a pressure look. Sanders didn't have the luxury of rhythm. He had to create miracles from chaos, play after play. And he did. Those back-to-back touchdown drives weren't a product of system or scheme. They were a breathtaking display of individual will and transcendent talent overcoming a systemic failure. So, when McCoy calmly pivoted to the growth process for rookie signal callers, the hypocrisy became almost palpable. He was describing a protected, curated development path, the one his quarterback was on. Shedeur Sanders is on no such path. His development is happening in a gladiator pit, with his own coaching staff occasionally throwing more lions in. To use the language of mentorship and support in one breath, while your comments implicitly critique a player receiving none of those things, isn't just stating facts. It's drawing a comparison where none can fairly exist. It frames Ward's managed, supported success as the right way, and Sanders' defiant, against all odds brilliance as a flawed, flashy alternative. This is the core of the outrage. It's not that McCoy lied. It's that he told a very specific, very convenient slice of the truth. And in doing so, he accidentally held a spotlight, not on the quarterbacks, but on the rotten foundation of the Cleveland Browns' entire operation. His press conference wasn't the story. It was the key that unlocked the door to the real one. Let's dismantle the illusion, piece by piece. What we saw on that field wasn't a fair fight between two rookies. It was a controlled experiment, highlighting the devastating power of context. On one side, Cam Ward operated in a quarterback's paradise. The Titans' run game wasn't just effective, it was dominant. A sledgehammer that cracked the Browns' defensive will play after play. This is the cheat code for any young passer. It means play-action fakes actually work, freezing linebackers for that extra half second. It means third and manageable instead of third and impossible. It means the entire playbook is open and the defense is perpetually on its heels, guessing. Ward's job was to be a competent point guard on a championship team, valuable, but supported by an all-star cast. Now, flip the script to Shedeur Sanders. His reality was a quarterback's purgatory. The Browns' run game wasn't just bad, it was a ghost. The leading rusher that night? Sanders himself. That single stat tells you everything. It tells the defense to ignore the run fake, to pin their ears back, and to come hunting. Every snap was an obvious passing down. There was no rhythm, no easing into the game. From the first whistle, Sanders was in survival mode, forced to create something from nothing. To be the entire offensive engine, passer, play extender, and emergency runner. The playbook shrunk to a single desperate page. Shedeur, make a play. This is why comparing their final stat lines is a pointless, almost deceptive exercise. It's like judging two surgeons by their success rates, but only revealing that one operated in a state-of-the-art hospital and the other in a parking lot with a Swiss Army knife. The circumstances render the comparison meaningless. Ward's success was the expected, logical output of a well-designed system. Sanders' production was a shocking, illogical defiance of physics. He wasn't just playing quarterback. He was performing emergency triage on a failing offense, and he nearly saved its life. To view them as two data points in the same column is to miss the entire, brutal, beautiful truth of what actually happened. One player showed he could thrive in ideal conditions. The other proved he could manufacture miracles in a vacuum. Only one of those skills is truly rare. All the context, all the struggle, all the defiance, it all funneled into one single defining play that ripped away any pretense and exposed the raw nerve of this entire saga. The Browns, against all odds, powered by the sheer force of Shedeur Sanders' will, had scored. 1 point down, 6 seconds left. The season, flickering on the brink. The decision was a no-brainer. Go for two. Go for the win. Put the game in the hands of the man who had just authored a miracle. And then, Kevin Stefanski made the call that defied reason, strategy, and basic instinct. With the entire narrative of this rookie's resilience resting on a single snap, Stefanski called a play that took the ball out of Shedeur Sanders' hands. Let that sink in. The quarterback who was hotter than any player in the stadium, who had just surgically dissected the Titans' defense for 6 frantic minutes, who was pulsing with the kind of invincible confidence you can't script, was reduced to a decoy. The play was given to a rookie running back who had been stonewalled all night, tasked with making a complex read in the most high-pressure moment of his young career. It failed. The game was lost. This wasn't a gamble. A gamble implies you're backing your best asset. This was an intentional sidestep. Think about the sheer, breathtaking audacity of the decision. In a league where elite quarterbacks are paid $50 million a year specifically for these 6 seconds, the Browns chose not to use theirs. They had a human flamethrower at their disposal and opted to try and spark a damp match. The explanations that followed mismatches, design, rookie mistakes, ring hollow. They are excuses for a fundamental sin against coaching. In the crucible of competition, you ride your best player. Period. You don't get cute. You don't outthink the room. You don't betray the momentum you spent all quarter building. That play was the smoking gun. It was the moment a pattern of questionable decisions crystallized into something fans could point to and say, with chilling certainty, this is not about football. It transformed Stefanski from a coach making bad calls into a central figure in a mystery. Why would anyone, in their right mind, actively choose to not use their single greatest weapon when everything is on the line? The search for a logical football answer ended right there. The search for a darker, more disturbing truth began. That 2-point conversion wasn't a tragic, isolated blunder. It was the loudest and most damning note in a symphony of dysfunction that has been playing all season long. To dismiss it as a one-off mistake is to ignore the mounting evidence that points to a chilling, deliberate pattern. When you start to connect the dots, a picture emerges that goes beyond incompetence and flirts with intentional sabotage. Look at the red zone, the place where games are won, where quarterbacks cement their legacies. For Shedeur Sanders, it's become a forbidden zone. Time and again, when the Browns march inside the 20-yard line, the play calls undergo a bizarre transformation. The offense that Sanders has just meticulously driven down the field is suddenly taken out of his hands. We see the wildcat formation, a gimmick that sidelines the quarterback entirely. We see another quarterback subbed in for a designed run, a public and humiliating vote of no confidence. We see overly complex trick plays that prioritize cleverness over the simple, devastating talent standing in the shotgun. It's a consistent, almost ritualistic removal of responsibility at the most critical juncture. Why? What possible football logic justifies this? A rookie quarterback's growth is built on repetitions and trust, especially in high-leverage moments. These are the snaps that build a leader. Yet, Stefanski's system seems designed to deny Sanders those very experiences. It's as if the organization is terrified of letting him succeed too visibly, too completely. It creates a perverse narrative. See, he can move us between the 20 seconds, but he can't finish. But they are the ones refusing to let him try. This extends to the very structure of his development. From day one, the contrast has been glaring. While other rookies were embedded with the first team, Sanders was relegated to throwing to staffers on a side field, an exile disguised as a redshirt plan. The reps that are oxygen to a young QB were rationed. Even after being forced into action by injury, the support system around him, the play calling, the run game, the protection, has often seemed designed to highlight difficulty, not alleviate it. It's a setup for struggle. When a single bizarre decision is surrounded by a constellation of other bizarre decisions, all orbiting the same player, you must ask a harder question. Is this a coach who is simply unfathomably bad at his job? Or do his actions serve a different, unspoken goal? Could it be about protecting the ego of a regime that didn't draft him highly? Is it about controlling the narrative around a player whose fame and talent threaten to overshadow the coaching staff? Is it, as some whispers suggest, a personal refusal to be seen as succeeding because of Deion Sanders' son? The pattern refuses to let us settle on simple incompetence. Incompetence is random, chaotic. What we are witnessing with Shedeur Sanders is consistent, focused, and peculiarly personal. It's a sequence of choices that systematically limit, undermine, and complicate his path to success. Once is a mistake, twice is a trend, but a full season of this? That starts to look like a design. And if it is a design, then the real game isn't happening on the field on Sundays. It's happening in the shadows, between a generational talent and the people who seem determined to prove he was never worth the spotlight in the first place. Kevin Stefanski's press conferences have become their own form of evidence. They don't clarify, they cloud. When confronted with the inexplicable like that two-point conversion, he doesn't defend his logic with the fiery conviction of a believer. He retreats. The answers are masterpieces of evasion, coated in a veneer of mild annoyance, as if the questions themselves are an inconvenience. He speaks in vague procedural terms about play design and execution, never about belief, instinct, or the blindingly obvious hot hand standing on his sideline. This isn't the demeanor of a coach who made a bold, calculated gamble he still stands behind. This is the posture of someone hoping the subject will just go away. That defensiveness speaks volumes. In the NFL, confidence is currency. A coach who knows he has his guy, who believes in his process, will project certainty, even after a loss. Stefanski projects something else. The simmering irritation of a man whose decisions can't withstand simple scrutiny. He's not a leader explaining a tough outcome. He's a bureaucrat dismissing an audit. This disconnect is fatal. His job, his entire purpose, is to project a clear plan to win and instill the belief that he can execute it. Instead, his actions on the field broadcast chaos, and his words off it broadcast a profound reluctance to even engage with the chaos he created. It erodes the very trust a team needs to survive. When the person calling the shots seems more concerned with deflecting questions than fixing obvious self-inflicted wounds, it tells you everything you need to know about where the real problem lies. The mystery isn't in the playbook. It's in the man holding it, and his puzzling determination to prove he's the smartest person in the room, even if it means losing the game. To truly grasp the depth of this failure, you have to go back to the beginning. Shedeur Sanders didn't just walk into a tough situation. He was systematically placed into a developmental desert. While Cam Ward was being given the keys to the Titans' kingdom from rookie minicamp first-team reps, tailored playbooks, a coaching staff chanting his name Sanders was being shown the service entrance. Reports from training camp painted a surreal picture. A fifth-round talent, already flashing undeniable ability, relegated to throwing passes to equipment managers and assistants on a side field. He wasn't being developed. He was being stored. The official line was a redshirt year, a concept that feels laughably naive in the cutthroat win, now reality of the NFL. This wasn't just a slow start. It was an intentional starvation of resources. Reps are to a quarterback what oxygen is to a fire. They build timing, trust, chemistry, and instinct. The Browns chose to smother that fire before it could even catch. They buried him on a depth chart behind veterans with visibly lower ceilings, a move that had nothing to do with on-field evaluation and everything to do with rigid, outdated planning. The organization invested the bare minimum draft capital in him and then seemed determined to prove that valuation correct, rather than being thrilled to have uncovered a diamond. Now, fast forward to the present and witness the tragic irony. With mere scraps of proper preparation, a few weeks of real reps after being thrust into duty, Sanders is performing minor miracles on Sundays. It forces a heartbreaking, undeniable what-if onto the stage. What if, from day one, the Browns had seen what was so obvious to anyone watching his tape? What if they had given him the starter's reps, built the offensive system around his preternatural pocket presence and clutch gene, and committed to him with the same fervor Tennessee committed to Ward? The answer is, we'd be having a completely different national conversation. Instead of discussing sabotage and dysfunction, we'd be analyzing MVP odds. We'd be marveling at the greatest fifth-round steal in a generation, a franchise cornerstone resurrecting a moribund team. The talent was always there. It was the commitment that was missing. The Browns didn't just fail to support Shedeur Sanders. They constructed an entire environment engineered to make his success as difficult as possible to achieve, and then seem bewildered when he achieves it anyway. They poisoned the well and are now complaining about the taste of the water. This is more than a wasted season. It's a case study in how to take a potential legend and make him fight a war on two fronts: against the opposing defense and against the very people who were supposed to have his back. So, let's return to the spark that ignited this whole powder keg. Were Mike McCoy's comments a calculated slight against Shedeur Sanders? In the end, obsessing over that question is like analyzing the tone of a fire alarm while the building burns down behind it. The real, unavoidable truth that McCoy's press conference accidentally broadcast wasn't about quarterback rivalry. It was an accidental documentary on organizational philosophy. McCoy gave us a pristine case study of how a functional NFL franchise operates. Identify your guy, build a fortress around him, simplify his world, make every resource available, from the run game to the play calls, with the singular goal of making him successful. The result? Predictable, sustainable wins. It's the corporate model of quarterback development. Then we have the Cleveland Browns. Their model isn't corporate, it's conspiratorial. Identify a shocking talent that fell into your lap. Question it. Isolate it. Withhold the standard resources. Complicate his job at every turn. And when his raw, uncoached genius still threatens to break through and win, introduce a final, inexplicable variable, a play call that removes him entirely. The result? A chaotic, self-inflicted loss, followed by a cloud of confusion and blame. McCoy, by calmly explaining his own successful process, held up a mirror that reflected the Browns' grotesque inversion of that process. He wasn't throwing shade at a player. He was inadvertently exposing a franchise. The debate about shade is a comforting distraction, a petty drama that lets the real architects of this failure off the hook. It keeps the focus on the quarterbacks, a duel the Browns have already rigged, instead of on the front office and coaching suite where the rigging occurs. This is the ultimate conclusion the evidence forces upon us. The story of Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns is no longer a sports narrative. It is a cautionary tale about institutional self-sabotage. It reveals what happens when ego, rigid planning, and perhaps a deep-seated fear of a player's stardom outweigh the simple, sacred mandate of the game, to put your best players in the best position to win. The Titans, through McCoy, showed us the blueprint. The Browns, through their every action, have shown us the blueprint's photo negative. One is a path to relevance. The other is a highway to oblivion, paved with the unexploded potential of a player they were too conflicted, too proud, or too broken to ever truly embrace. The shade is irrelevant. The shadow cast by the Browns' own dysfunction, however, is long, dark, and growing by the week. So where does this leave us? With an undeniable truth that towers over the wreckage of this season. Shedeur Sanders' talent is not just real, it's bulletproof. It's a force of nature that has cut through organizational neglect, schematic sabotage, and a relentless campaign of low expectations. His future in this league isn't a question of if, but of when and where he will erupt into full-blown superstardom. Whether it's in Cleveland or on another roster that understands the precious asset they're getting, his path is inevitable. Talent this defiant always finds its stage. But that certainty forces a darker, more haunting question into the light, one that will echo in NFL lore for years to come. Years from now, when Shedeur Sanders is leading a contender, when his jersey is a top seller and his highlights are in constant rotation, how will we look back on this chapter in Cleveland? Will this be remembered as one of the most costly, self-inflicted wounds in modern sports history? A case study in how a franchise can have a transformational player fall into its lap and do everything humanly possible to convince him and the world that he was never good enough? The evidence for that historical indictment is already being written, not in ink, but in bewildering play calls, in denied red zone opportunities, and in the chilling, consistent pattern of complicating success. We are witnessing the live birth of a what-if legend. The kind fans and analysts will debate for decades. What if the Browns had just supported him? What if, from day one, they had given him the reins, the reps, and the unwavering belief they gave to every other high draft pick quarterback? The statistical projection is terrifying in its lost potential. We are likely watching a Rookie of the Year season get dismantled in real time by the very people who should be building it. The final verdict won't be found in this year's win-loss column. It will be etched in the legacy of two men. Kevin Stefanski is fighting a desperate, rearguard action to define his own tenure. But each confounding decision is cementing his role in this story, not as a coach, but as an obstacle, a central figure in a future documentary about wasted potential. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders, simply by playing through the chaos, is authoring a legendary origin story of resilience. He's proving that the most formidable opponent he's faced isn't a division rival's defense, it's the organizational machinery of his own team. The real stakes of these final games are no longer about playoffs or pride. They are about legacy and historical judgment. Every time Stefanski calls a play that sidelines his quarterback, he isn't just risking a down, he's adding another line to his own damning epitaph. And every time Sanders rises above it to make a play that leaves us breathless, he isn't just moving the chains, he's securing his place as the one who got away from the franchise that never deserved him in the first place. The story is still being written, but the theme is already clear. This isn't just a bad season. This is the moment Cleveland may have to spend a generation explaining away.